I think they're on top of the,
Hillary?
yes, Debbie.
Hi. Two things. That email to Chris about 1440 Chequesset Neck.
Yep.
I don't know what that person is talking about. The Wellfleet Conservation Trust has nothing to do with that property.
Correct. I haven't read that email yet. But
Okay, so perhaps someone could just respond to her from the office indicating that we're confused and we have no idea what she's talking about.
yeah, I saw it come in. Let's see. The one, is it this one or no? Yeah, she sent it to you and I. They're in a butter to the property.
Maybe.
Yeah, they're just looking for a copy of the notice.
No, but see what they say.
The letter stated I could view it. Kindly email me as the hearing is coming on January 20th.
No.
Am I missing something?
I received a notice of intent. Stated I could receive a copy of the notice intent from, okay, I read it wrong, sorry.
Okay, okay, I was gonna say.
It's me.
Okay, okay. All right. I
apologize.
No, totally fine. Sometimes I miss things. It's all good.
I'm just a little flustered this afternoon, like everybody else.
Yeah, I hear that. Let's see. Okay. So we've taken the Open Space Committee off of the agenda, the helical pier discussion off of the agenda. We have the vessel discussion, and we have Nancy and Suzanne, and I asked the harbor master to come for that. Okay. And then we have Scott Horsley, Ryan Curley, and Annika to talk about the permeable reactive barriers. So I would suggest.
Could you just move the helical piers to next time?
Yep. So I was just going to say, I suggest we take either the permeable reactive barrier discussion or the vessel discussion first and second, or, you know, vice versa.
Happy to do that. Hillary, the other thing is we're running into a problem where people have not marked the trees they want to take down or staked where they want to put their sheds. And I don't see any reason why those matters should go ahead when we can't tell what they're doing.
So it's clearly in our instructions that they need to be staked. So I mean, if we can't visualize where they're going, then we can certainly continue them until they are properly staked. I don't have a problem with that.
The same thing with the trees when the trees are not marked.
Yeah, so on that topic, I spoke to the Millers on 21st Avenue who are trying to do vista pruning. They sent a map in, and they said when they dropped it off, Doug didn't tell them anything about staking, and they just didn't know anything about marking the trees.
Well, we can't tell from going out there, Mike.
No, I agree with you, but I was wondering.
This meeting is held pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, as amended, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaw and its regulations. Additionally, this meeting is being conducted pursuant to Governor Baker's initial order of March 12, 2020, and following orders regarding remote meetings and the open meeting law. Will the members present please announce themselves? Debbie Freeman,
Leon
Michael Fisher.
John Portnoy.
Barbara Brennisell.
okay. John Kumbler, do you want to announce yourself, please? We can't hear you.
John Kumbler.
Thank you. Okay, so we're only missing Ben. So we have a quorum. And why don't we start? We have two matters that I'd like to move out of order. First, we have the vessels discussion. I understand that Nancy Chavetta and Suzanne Thomas and the harbor master will be present for that. Are they present?
I see Nancy and Suzanne. I don't see the harbor master. And my guess is Bill Iaquest is here too to talk about the vessels.
Bill, are you?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great.
Me,
So-
me too.
Okay, Danny.
Jenny, sorry, I lost you in there.
All right, so why don't we start? Suzanne, would you like to start with any comments you have?
Oh, boy, hang on. I apologize. I'm trying to do two things at once. And I'm a little bit scattered because of what I was watching on TV.
Yes, we're all watching that. It's amazing what's happening.
I can't.
Stunned and shocked.
It's what I was afraid was going to happen when Nixon was leaving, but it took all these years to really happen. Vessels. The last time I was at this meeting, we discussed the town-owned racks, and my understanding was at this meeting you were going to decide what, if any, thing the town could do to facilitate your education and information program for people with property on the Bayside. And if I've missed something, I apologize.
Barbara, do you want to just generally fill Suzanne in?
Okay, well, we had generated a vessel report, a small vessel report from a subcommittee. And there were some action items, and some of them we said, oh, Suzanne should do this, or someone else should do that. But
Okay, well, I'm willing to discuss what you think, but I will tell you off the top, I don't have the personnel to do much additional to what I'm doing right now.
right. Hillary, did Suzanne get a copy of the report?
I did.
Okay. All right. So I think that the only thing that we said that you might be able to do is to identify areas that could be expanded, or if a
Yes.
second
Yes.
tier of racks could be put on, and some of those. There were also questions from people about how much money the town was making from the racks, how the lottery system worked. For example, if you had a spot this year, did you have to rejoin the lottery next year, or were you sort of grandfathered from year to year? So those were some questions that I think Denny had. And then we, let's see what else we had for the town to do. And then we all we're all interested in the topic of enforcement, I guess. Who's gonna enforce
Well,
things?
I'll start with the easy stuff. We have 160 rack spaces, including Gold Pond and the 3 Bayside locations. We charge $100 a space, so our revenue is $16,000 per year at this point. The expenses are the stipend that John Ryerson is paid per year to manage the paperwork and the stickers and the problems and anything else that arises. And that's $5,125. So the town makes a little under $11,000 a year profit from these racks. If you have a rack space, which means that you have either had one since the beginning of time, which some people have, or if you have put yourself on a waiting list and your name has come to the top of the waiting list, then you're given the rack space. And if you, every January, we send out renewal queries. And if you want to renew, you have to notify us within 30 days, sign the contract and send us money. If you fail to do that, your name goes onto the waiting list, and the first person on the waiting list is given the option of moving into your spot. So that's basically how, it's not really a lottery, it's a waiting list. And I have the most current waiting lists up on the website, town website. I put them up in the beginning of November, following the discussion at the last meeting. And the most numerous location is Gull Pond. So a couple of things, not this summer, but I have plans to reconstruct the aging racks that are getting a little wobbly and about which we get a lot of complaints, that the low spots are too low and the high spots are too high and the middle spots aren't deep enough to accommodate a canoe. So we're going to retrofit all the spots at Gull Pond to be the single level racks, such as the ones we have at Mayo Beach and the other Bayside locations. I got a quote from the DPW that they would do the labor, but it would be about $5,000 worth of product that would take to put these racks together. I had hoped to get that funding at town meeting, but because town meeting was moved and then streamlined, I did not get that funding request in the queue. So it'll be the summer of 2022 before that happens. One of the things we will be doing is utilizing space on one end of the corral there that corrals the trees where people used to park, is to create a gateway and put some racks in there that can help us amortize the 3-level racks into 1-level racks, but on a bigger footprint. I talked about money, I talked about process, talked about plans for the future. Enforcement is basically having enough. Right now it's John, and he supervises all the beach guards at the parking lots and the people that circulate and write tickets. He also goes and checks the racks at least once every 48 hours to make sure everybody on the rack has a sticker and then they're in the right spot. And I don't want to cut him out from what I need him to do in the parking lots. I would have to hire another person to check additional racks. There's probably enough space to put more at Mayo Beach, and there's enough space to put more at Indian Neck. Powers Landing, we really can't expand without cannibalizing parking, and I don't think the pushback I would get for taking parking spaces would be worth the extra racks discussion. If we can increase the number at Mayo, I think the people who really would like Powers Landing could cope with being at Mayo Beach. So that's my plan. And when the new racks are built for Gull Pond, we will also build new racks or whatever additional racks.
Okay, I have one question. When, is it John who does this?
Yes.
When he checks the parking lots, does he go down to the beach at Powers Landing, for example? Because there have been a lot of vessels just left there or tied there to the fence. So if he's just checking the parking lot, he can check if vessels have stickers, but if he's not going down to the beach, he can't see all the unpermitted kayaks just sitting.
Now, are all those documented, for lack of a better description, kayaks tied up there on town property? Because we only own the width of the parking lot. To my impression is a lot of them are to the left and the right, and they're not on a town property.
Who owns the beach in front of the parking lot?
The town does. So
Okay,
the
so
beach
that's
in front of
where-
the parking lot.
That's where they're being left. A lot of them are
Okay.
being left there, for example. So it would be really good if he could just stroll down to the beach and take a look at what's being left there and tied to the snow fencing or
And-
other posts on Powers Landing.
And if he sees them, what is your vision of what would happen at that point?
I don't know. What do you do with the ones that don't have a sticker that are left on racks or whatever?
We confiscate them.
Well, I think it would be the same kind of thing. I mean, and I'd like other people to chime in, but that would be my feeling if they're not permitted and they're being left there.
Watch the news while I go in the bedroom. Okay.
Yeah, when I say maybe we have 2 or 3 a year. And the biggest problem that we have now on the racks, in terms of being on the racks when you're not supposed to, the biggest problem is people come before they get their sticker and just put their kayak or canoe anywhere because they're eager to get them on the rack without checking to see what space they've been assigned that year, or they leave their sticker at home and they really paid for it. So there's a lot of, even with just 2 or 3 confiscations, there's a lot of other issues that go into this. And I would need, as I said, someone to do this. I would rather take it off of John's hands and give it to somebody that he supervises, because I need him for the more important things, or the more confrontational things on Ocean View Drive. And I would need a place to store them if we're going to have more than 2 or 3. I don't have any storage space right now. So I do have a truck that accommodates them, and we can move them from place A to place B, but and I don't know if we also should check with town council and see if we have, what kind of notice we have to put up, and do we have to put a notice on each boat and say you have 48 hours to remove this? I mean, I'm not quite sure what the legalities would be for, wholesale taking things off the beach.
Debbie, can I say a few things?
Sure, Michael, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, the harbor master does confiscate boats, he says, and he puts them out in the sands lot out by the dump. So the town has room there where they could be stored until they're recovered. Secondly, how does John know whether they're shell fishermen's boats or people who have moorings and dinghies?
You would have no idea unless there's some kind of marking on the boat.
Well, according to regulations, both of those are supposed to have stickers on the harbor masters, from the harbor master, which would make it much easier for him, wouldn't it?
I would defer to the harbor master about that, but if there were identification on the boat, we'd make it very much easier for us.
Well, the regulations call for those. Thank you, that's all.
And if they were identified, well, yeah, exactly. But it's going to take more than, it's going to take some thought and some consideration about putting together the enforcement process, and what do we do with this boat, and what kind of signs have to go up, and which falls into the educational piece of the vessel report, and the action items is education.
Right.
Which I'd be happy to pass out at the beach sticker house, by the way.
Yes, if we could generate something, a handout about small vessels, they could be passed out at the beach sticker house. But before we did that, we just wanted to make sure that everyone sort of knew what we're proposing and what the regulations entail and what the enforcement piece, like what is the penalty if you don't do that? Can you be fined? Your boat can be confiscated. And I mean, we can send this information out to the seasonal homeowners, to taxpayers, to renters, in a lot of different ways, but we have to know what we're doing before we send out anything like that.
I agree, and that's why we'd have to, not that I'm involving myself, but I would be most comfortable with a written protocol that I and my people could follow.
Right.
Debbie?
Yes, John.
Yeah, my concern here is we have a whole lot of summer people who come in and bring their kayaks and whatnot with them. And they're here for 2 or 3 weeks. And if there's no place for them to put their designated place for them to put their kayaks, they're liable to leave them on the beach in places we don't want them. And then we've got a problem of, do we confiscate them? Or if we do confiscate them, where do we put them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think one of the things the town needs to focus on is not only building enough racks to accommodate all the seasonal people, homeowners, but also have racks for summer people who are here for a brief period of time. Because the more racks we have available, the less likely we're going to have problems with enforcement. And we can have, racks, you're allowed, 48 hours or 4 days in this rack. But I think if we just have racks that are only there for the homeowners, we're going to run into problems with people who come for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, have their kayaks and figure, well, I'll just leave it on the beach. No one's going to steal it. So I don't think we want to be in the position where we're just the bad guys. I'd rather we create structures that facilitate people putting their kayaks where we want them. That's all I need to say.
All right.
Good, Deb? It's Suzanne.
Oh, I'm sorry. Suzanne, could you wait? Denny had a comment and then I'll go
Sorry.
back to you.
I have two comments. Number one, through you, Debbie, to Suzanne. Does John monitor the Pleasant Point rack?
That's the conservation office that does that.
Okay. And do we sell stickers for those?
No?
We do out of the Health and Conservation Office.
Okay.
But then do you guys monitor that rack?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. The other thing is, your subcommittee was looking at what other towns do. I'm not really supportive of what John's suggesting here because I don't think we have an obligation to provide anybody beach space for their kayak or whatever. So I'd like to know what some of the other towns are doing about that.
I think Ben investigated that a little bit. They're struggling as well. And I agree with you, Denny. I don't think someone who's here for a week or two should take a spot that someone could use for the whole season. When they come out here, they have racks usually on their cars and they can transport, I feel.
Yep.
But is Ben on the call here?
Yeah,
Okay, Ben actually did some investigation about other towns, so I'll let him tell you.
yeah, Denny, to answer your question, I reached out to the Sandwich Natural Resources Department, and the Sandwich Conservation Commission actually is in the middle of updating their vessel storage regulations as well. And they told me that the conservation agent there told me that he would send me the draft once it's like more of a final approved version. And so that's about as much as I could get from them like thus far, because they're still in like a draft status as well. And then I know the town of Chatham has a few issues as well. So seems like it's happening across the Cape.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that we found out that Eastham issues permits as well, but they don't have racks. They have places on the beach or something like that, but they do have a vessel ID and permitting system in Eastham. So I think towns are struggling with this. I was in Chatham and found out from someone that there was just one person. I don't know if he was natural resources or what his job title was, but he was just spending his days taking kayaks off the Spartina.
It's a whole position in and of itself. We do have Will Sullivan here from the Harbor Master's office too. Perhaps he has a few words, and we have Melissa Lowe from the Audubon as well. So maybe we want to round the circle here and see what these
Yep.
guys say.
Okay, good idea.
If I may, the problem is not unique to Wellfleet. This is happening along coastlines everywhere. If you've done any research on the sales of outdoor goods this year, it's been astronomical. You'd be lucky to be able to buy this stuff. Never mind, get a hold of it and use it. From the other harbor masters too, we're all kind of dealing with this. The sticker part's easy. We can put more plastic stickers on boats. That'll solve knowing whose is what. The patrolling of the areas, if we go out, which we can't possibly go out every day and do it. If we go out on Friday, let's say, and go check these and have a guy come in and pay a person to do this, what we might run into is, what if they all come on Saturday? Then they're there for a week. How do you get around? Is a week acceptable? What's acceptable here? If we go Friday and Monday, you still have, they could come Monday afternoon and be on Friday, and there until then. So we're still having the same problem without the education. I think the education part is huge. And that's also where you come into the seizure aspect of this. If we're going to take people's items, even if it be on town land, they need to have a clear definition of what they can and can't do. Just like a parking sign, if it's a 30-minute parking lot or an hour, or there's no overnight parking, we need to let the people know somehow before we take things. And when we do take things, we have to be very, very careful about how we catalog that and itemize that. Whereas we are taking property, albeit on our town property, but we are confiscating or seizing something of them. So it does need to be clearly defined what they can and cannot do in a more advertised or more public area for them to see. That's going to become a issue with it as well, because if they don't know the rules or they're not clearly posted and advertised for them, taking something of someone's is probably a pretty big liability issue. That being said, some of the places we do that, we store them. There is a fee structure set up for that sort of thing. We've been very liberal with that in the past. There's always room for improvement on those sorts of things. But I think education is the key, and knowing that we are dealing with a tremendous influx of users here. And what are we going to do with them?
I think Will makes really good points. Last year, it was just crazy, completely crazy. And I think a lot of it was because we had a major influx of seasonal homeowners who just stayed here the whole summer. Lots of renters, everything was full, and everyone wanted to be outdoors. And I agree with everything he said. I think signage and education might be key, but signage is really important. I mean, that works for if you park on, for example, on Gull Pond Road, the police can ticket you because it says no parking this side of the road. And because there's a sign, they can do that. So I think signage is key. Education, I think, can come with rental agreements. If people are renting their houses, they can, they usually have do's and don'ts, or, how to throw out the trash, and there could be a line item about storage of small vessels as well. So I think that's something we have to work on. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to even happen in 1 year, but I think we should start someplace.
Bill?
I ask Will a question.
Sure.
Well, Bill Iquesa, I approach this from two ways. One, as a boat owner who has a mooring. In the past, you gave us a sticker for our dinghy to help identify it. Will you be doing that again this year?
Yes. I think after the talking with this committee, we will be issuing those stickers again.
And you would be also issuing them to shell fishermen who have a vessel they want to leave on the shore.
Yes, I think that would be helpful with this.
Okay. And I'm speaking then from the Conservation Trust in our private area, so that we can help identify what are legitimate, small boat vessels, so that we can identify that they're either with the shellfish group or they have a mooring out in the water.
I have one question for Bill and Denny, and I think you answered it once before, but I just want to make it clear. When you have your lottery system at Old Wharf Point, is it just for homeowners in the neighborhood, or can anyone get in that lottery?
Bill, you want to take it?
Yeah, the conservation, the board, Conservation Trust has decided that there are as many more people just off of on or access with Old Wharf Road than we have spots. To give you an example, I think 50 people asked for a application this year, and all of those pretty much will just be off of on Old Wharf Road or a road that accesses Old Wharf Road. So
Okay.
we felt that it made sense to minimize traffic and accommodate those people closest to that area.
Yeah, it's good for traffic and parking too. I
Yes.
agree. But so
It's in our rules.
should we take your kayak rack off our list of racks? Danny, you had a comment in some of
Well,
the,
It does not get monitored by the town in any way.
Right.
We do that by ourselves
right,
and didn't want to encourage any more
right,
people coming to us. I mean, if you want to keep it there, that's fine, but somehow I don't think it adds to the process here that you're addressing. I
right.
think we've got it nearly under control. I won't say it's under control because there's always something, but so.
Hillary, you had said Melissa was here. Melissa,
Mhm.
Lowe?
She shut her video off. I'm not sure if she, oh, there she is. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, everyone.
Did you have comments too on this issue?
Well, I'm slowly getting up to speed, on this. I have been out to Lieutenant Island, of course, I think is, the primary area there at the, and we are actually meeting with the homeowners association or the homeowners group coming up again to address some other issues of parking on the southwest corner. But that was on my list to chat with them about the kayaks, which is also in, on our property there. So I think, reaching out to Denny here and others to kind of get some ideas on, the rack system, how to enforce it, how to, will be my project for part of this winter.
Just to add, I think as Will pointed out, and I think most of us probably understand that we need to get out the communication on what the regulations are and where people can and cannot put vessels. That it would be nice to have a little paragraph in there that leaving things on private property, people should get permission ahead of time before they do that. That they don't have a right to just leave it on private property.
May I, Debbie? Well, we are proposing a change to the regulations. There was actually nothing said about private property in the Conservation Commission regulations, and we're proposing another paragraph that says that on private property, whether residential, commercial, or conservation areas, vessels must be stored outside of the 100-foot buffer, which is our area of jurisdiction, unless they are resting on a permitted storage structure, such as a rack, or floating even at low tide and tied to a permitted dock or mooring. So that you can't just put it in the water. You have to have a permit from the harbor master. Or resting on a pre-existing area of open beach or non-vegetated area above the high tide line. That was not in our regulations. So we're not proposing that the town ask people who have their vessels on private property to register them with the town. It wouldn't be a bad idea in case they floated away, but that's a level of bureaucracy that we're not really suggesting at this point. We just want them to take them off the vegetation. So we're proposing that they be taken out of our area of jurisdiction, which is 100 feet from the wetland.
I thought that suggestion worked the way you had it, so
Okay,
certainly endorse it.
Okay, so I think unless there are other comments,
I just have one comment. we have Jordan, our AmeriCorps, who would be more than happy to work on a brochure. Do you want us to work with her, or do you want us to put her in touch with the vessel committee? What's best and what's easiest?
I think, Hillary, you have a lot on your plate right now between the health issues and everything else. So until we all get vaccinated, I would be happy to have Jordan work with our subcommittee.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I second that. I'd be happy to spend a little bit of time.
I mean, even if we could meet outside or whatever, so just give her our emails and, yeah.
Will do.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you so much to the subcommittee and to all the commenters, and we'll keep the process going so that we can produce a final draft version for everyone's further comments. Is that fair to say, Barbara?
Yes, and something to go out before spring when people start coming back with their small vessels and leaving them on the beach. Yes. So we have a couple of months, I think.
This is Nancy.
I'm
I
sorry,
just had
Nancy, I didn't mean to keep
one
you out.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Will the document or the brochure that you're going to produce, that's going to be kind of directed to, I guess, the kayak owners or tourists who come. But I would like to be able to communicate or update the shell fishermen, because, maybe some people know the rules, but if others don't, and we're going to be requiring stickers like Will was suggesting, I just would want to be able to communicate that to them. So I guess I would want to know, I want to be communicating correct copy. So
Okay.
would that be coming up through you or through this brochure?
I think the brochure can address that as well. If
Okay.
it looks like it's going to be too unwieldy, we could separate it into two different documents, one for shell fishermen and people who have moorings and the other for recreational people. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Okay, I'll tune in when you bring it
But
back.
we'll
here for review.
definitely keep that in mind, that shell fishermen sometimes have to be reminded year to year about this.
Yeah, I can put it in a crier and have a link to the PDF of the document.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, so Barbara, would you like to see this on every meeting till it's finalized?
Oh, God, no. Unless people have comments, I think I have Denny's comments. He has some great suggestions about wording and things like that. I think our subcommittee can work on this and then get back to you one final time with the final documents, and we'll work with the AmeriCorps. Jordan is her name. Is that right?
Jordan, yeah.
And produce some educational materials as well.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you for all your efforts, all of you. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the permeable reactive barrier and temporary structures. I understand that someone from Horsley Witten is here and Ryan Curley is here on that. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. We have Annika, we have Scott, we have Ryan,
Wow.
and that's it.
All right,
Is it possible for me to share the screen?
Yes, it should be.
Okay.
would you like to start, Ryan?
Well, yeah, I guess that would be great. Did everybody get a chance to read the document I provided a week ago, 2 weeks ago on
Yeah.
this? Okay.
Well, the December 17th copy of it, a lot of the pages in the last half were blank.
So I sent a corrected copy with the pages corrected, but if you haven't received one, I'll send it again. So,
Please.
okay. So, and can you see my screen right now or
Not yet.
not yet? Okay. So screen share. Yep. Screen one, share.
There we go.
So. Cancel. All right, well, it's not pulling up the slideshow. Anyway, so the
There it is.
basically, sorry, what?
It's
It's
now
there.
in front of us.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, I had gone through and measured all the seawalls and bulkheads that were constructed within town. This is an example here. It's in a Google. Mine was in a format for Google. Annika has taken that and made it into a GIS layer, with all the different types of bulkheads here. This is oyster. There's only one really small one that's oyster. It's off of Commercial Street. Most of these purple ones are they're wood. And then how the Cape's waters flows is like this. The depth of the groundwater is dependent on the depth of the land surface and where the lens is. So this is how it meets the water, where it interfaces with the salt water from the freshwater to salt water. So you can see like the interface gets really narrow towards the end of it. So naturally, the seepage face of groundwater it exits between where the groundwater table is and at a level below the high tide line. Oftentimes you'll see this where you'll get small freshwater outflows on the sand flats. When a seawall is built, it's commonly it's not permeable or not as permeable as sand. Sand has really high permeability. So this is how the groundwater responds to the construction of a seawall that's impermeable. It increases the water or the groundwater table on the landward side of a seawall. And this is how the groundwater flows between the blue is freshwater, the red is salt water. So this is how it comes basically out from underneath the impermeable seawall and then raises in front of it. This actually has been linked to increased rates of scouring as well, because it makes the sand right in front of the seawall more mobile. But anyway, so we have a very extensive length of seawall scattered around Wellfleet Harbor. We're also dealing with nitrogen issues. And so one of the strategies that we're looking at is permeable reactive barriers. There's two methods. One's injection. The other one is a trench method. The one pictured is using a trench. The most expensive part of installing a permeable reactive barrier is the excavation required to get the barrier down to below the groundwater table. And so the Cape Cod Commission is estimated, this is a rough estimate, it's not meant as a hard fast number, but you get about 0.6 kilograms of nitrogen remediation per linear foot of a permeable reactive barrier. And the cost is also driven by how far down you have to put the barrier to intercept the groundwater. So where is the optimal place to install a permeable reactive barrier? So obviously, where the groundwater table is at its narrowest, when it's the closest we can get to the seaward side, so that we can catch the nitrogen from as many of the landward side properties as possible. And to install a coastal engineering structure, it requires extensive excavation. So to me, it's a good fit for permeable reactive barriers. And so This is two that were installed in Falmouth. They are basically permeable reactive barriers that interact with the seawater. I think one of them wasn't intended to interact with it, but they found out that was frequently being overtopped by wave action. These have been installed for a while. The Wacoya Bay one has been extremely successful. There's been a number of studies on how fast the nitrogen or the carbon source, which is wood chips, which is really inexpensive, is being depleted. All indications show that it's going to last a long time. But slightly less than what it would be if it was entirely in fresh water. This is what it looks like from the downward side of the permeable reactive barrier as this one is set up, where basically on either side you have algae, and where the permeable reactive barrier is, you don't get the algae because the nitrogen is not coming out. It's been extensively sampled, so this is the nitrogen concentrations above the permeable reactive barrier, and below it remediates the vast majority of the nitrogen. This is a bulkhead that was just installed over the summer, I believe, in Brookhaven, New York. It's meant as a pilot permeable reactive barrier that's also a bulkhead. And then so I started looking. So here we have the depth of the trench from grade. So this is, about 2 meters, let's say. So then I asked Hillary for some plans of some recent coastal engineering structures that were having work done. So this is one on Chequesset Neck Road, and it goes down about 3 meters. And actually, at high tide, it's already above the, it's like 2 feet, I don't know. And here's another one that goes down over 2 meters again. This one is off of Old Wharf, I believe. And I don't have links on all of them. But so this is the problem that Wellfleet is facing here. Is basically it's a big math issue where we're trying to figure out how to remediate the nitrogen that we need to remove. So the wastewater committee is using the build out loads, which is a very, very high target. So we need to have a reduction of about 20,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year to meet our targets harbor wide. This is the Cove sub-embayment, so it actually goes to the railroad bridge. This is one of the biggest problem ones. It's the Cove and Duck Creek have the highest percentage that we need to remediate, which makes it very complicated. This is from the Cape Cod Commission's MVP tool, which has the sub-embayments and embayments. It's almost the same as the MEPs, but slightly different. And then, so this is where in the Cove, let's say these 3 seawalls they are 1,600 linear feet. Basically, if these 3 were upgraded to permeable reactive barriers, you're looking at a potential remediation of maybe 1,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year. And then, as I was saying, the extent of the seawalls is very large. It's about 3 miles. This is a breakdown on what they are constructed out of, and older or newer. If just the ones that are due for replacement were upgraded to permeable reactive barriers, we're looking at potential remediation of about 3,400 kilograms of nitrogen per year. And then if they were all upgraded, we're looking at approximately 10,000 kilograms of nitrogen per year, which is about half of our target load. It breaks down differently for each sub-embayment. I haven't done that math. Annika Quick has done it though. is my understanding. This is how it works. This is from Foreman of Woods Hole. And this is on a study of the Wilcoit permeable reactive barrier, where it's interfacing with the nitrogen in the groundwater and the saline seawater. So what I am encouraging is for for all coastal engineering structures that are not a groin or something along those lines to incorporate a permeable reactive barrier in their installation. And installation or anytime when they're rebuilt or upgraded. There was one of them that's been rebuilt like 3 or 4 times since 2005. So it presents a great opportunity to make these structures benefit or in some way beneficial to the harbor rather than always being adverse. So thank you.
Hillary, is there any science, any work done on any impact of these as far as sand transport and as far as the effect on the seawall? I can't hear you.
Not that I have seen, but I haven't gone looking either. They're in the ground, so I can't imagine it would have an adverse effect on that.
And can we legally mandate that these be put in when people repair or construct CES?
I think if our regulations require it, yes, it would mean a change in our regulations. That's what you're proposing, isn't it, Ryan?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Scott Horsley. I jump in with a couple of comments if I may.
Sure.
I actually asked Annika Quick to join us, who's one of my students from Harvard, and she has a brief slideshow that overlaps a little bit with Ryan's done. So I don't know if we want to go through that or not. There are different slides, but I think what Ryan has done here, I think explains the general idea. The thought is we've been looking at these PRBs as a tool to mitigate this nitrogen issue as part of the targeted watershed plan. And as Ryan's suggesting here, the majority cost of installing these is the excavation. And I think the thought is that if somebody's going to be doing that for the purpose of renovating a seawall, that's the majority of the cost. And to oversimplify it a little bit, really what we're talking about doing is adding some wood chips, which is the matrix that it turns out provides the treatment. So it's a really low cost item, and really the challenge is the design. And we've been talking with the wastewater committee about a possible pilot project in the area of Commercial Street to try this out. There are, as Ryan suggested, there have been a number of installations across the Cape, and the results are very promising. They look great. And I think the thought here is, to your question about could you require these? Well, you could certainly either encourage them or require them through a regulation at probably pretty limited cost as an add-on when people are actually doing the construction to begin with. So that was kind of our thinking that I think both Ryan and I shared, but I'll just ask the chair. I did ask Anna to join us tonight.
Yep.
And she's got a brief slideshow. If there's still time, I'd love her to go through it, but I don't want to take too much of your time, and frankly didn't know that Ryan was going to run through that. So I don't want to duplicate, so I'll leave it up to you.
No, I think we could, unless anyone objects, we could quickly go through that.
Okay, she only has 8 slides, and if she could, I don't know if she can get control of the to share her screen. I'll just ask her to go through those, and I think it would supplement what Ryan's done quite well.
Yep, she has some parts that I'm missing. So
let's see if I can get this up here. Yeah, so I won't go through all of this since Ryan did such a great job of giving the overview, and you're already familiar with a lot of the issues he already brought up. So I guess I just have some diagrams that may be helpful. And so like Ryan mentioned, these permeable reactive barriers, you just basically put carbon in the path of the groundwater, and as nitrate moves through, natural denitrification happens. And so the ones that were mentioned already were the trench PRBs, where you just dig a hole, put carbon in it, wood chips essentially. Another one that's been put in place on the Cape in Orleans is an injection PRB, where you just drill lots of holes and inject a liquid carbon substrate like vegetable oil. And so this is the bulkhead PRB that Ryan talked about. So I can have a diagram of what that looks like. But it's very similar to a trench PRB, except that it's kind of higher up. You don't have to go down as far. And as the groundwater moves from landward to seaward, you have permeable sides of this barrier right here. And so the water moves through the wood chips and denitrification happens. So that's kind of the idea that Ryan already mentioned. And the pilot project that Scott talked about, we're looking at Duck Creek because that is the most nitrogen impaired area of the Wellfleet estuary currently. And specifically, we're looking at this site. There's 2 gravel parking lots right here at the intersection of Bank Street and Commercial Street. And before I kind of zoom in on that specifically, I wanted to show this, the vulnerability, the shoreline vulnerability provided by the Cape Cod Commission, which you're probably already familiar with as well. The darker red color right here shows the highest shoreline vulnerability. And so that is tied in with where these coastal protection structures already are, kind of causing that or protecting from that in different ways. But if we zoom in on Duck Creek, you can see this pilot site right here that we're looking at is at this high vulnerability level. So here are the 2 lots we were looking at. The yellow lines right here outline the property boundaries. So lot 117 right here is owned by the town of Wellfleet, and then 111 is owned by the Masonic Lodge. And there aren't any buildings here currently, but there are these retaining walls, these red lines right here you can see on the town-owned lot and then on the adjacent properties right here. So we're thinking you could use this town-owned property right here for kind of a pilot PRB to modify that wall that's already there, put wood chips, see how that works out. And then you could, in theory, build more of a bulkhead on this other property here to protect from erosion and remove nitrogen. So we've already kind of looked at this conceptual design right here, so I won't go into more detail there, but I would point out that it's important to have a hydrogeological site investigation because that's really going to constrain your groundwater flow rates, which also determines how much nitrate will be removed and then also the cost associated with that per kilogram nitrate removal. There are lots of coastal structures already there, as Ryan has talked about, so I'll kind of end with his map that he put together. And I think this might be updated from the slide that he has. So this is broken down by sub-watershed. So the linear feet of bulkhead and Duck Creek and the Cove are the ones that Ryan mentioned as potential for removing a lot of the nitrogen in the area. So don't want to take too much of your time, but since Ryan's already done a great job of covering this, but hopefully that gives
Annika, thank you. And I'll just add 2 last comments and then maybe we can see if there's any questions. But our thinking on this is really two points I'd make. One is one that I already did make. I think if we can integrate this technology with ongoing and future seawall construction projects, it really makes it pretty cost effective because, as I said before, the primary cost of these same things to be the excavation and construction, which arguably is going to be happening for the purpose of shoreline protection. It also provides, I think, an opportunity to try to address 2 problems at the same time, one being sea level rise and the other being the nitrogen. Because look, let's remember that this plan to address this nitrogen issue is probably something that's going to happen over several decades, regardless of what technologies the town selects. So again, the thinking here is if we had some guidelines or even regulations that when these projects come along before the Conservation Commission, that that this technology is at least considered as an add-on, it might be a really cost-effective and timely way to implement this going forward. But again, our thoughts are that we'd like to try this at one location to document its performance. And again, we've been looking at that site that Annika highlighted at Commercial Street. So we'll stop there and see if there are questions and thoughts and comments.
Scott, has anyone else engaged in this process, putting this into the regulations for coastal engineering structures?
Not to my knowledge. As both Ryan and Annika pointed out, the one place we've seen this PRB technology actually constructed is down in Long Island. And that was part of a research project to prove the technology. But I don't believe anybody's built this into their regulations or policies yet that I know of. Barbara?
Yes, do we need results from a pilot project before we go ahead with this to show that it's going to work in Duck Creek? I mean, there should be some data before we impose this on homeowners, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the data that we do have is from Long Island, which was quite successful. And we also know that, as Ryan and Annika both pointed out, other similar PRBs have good performance rates. It's really the wood chip matrix that's providing the food source for the bacteria that do the so-called denitrification. So we know the technology works, but I do agree with you. I would suggest the pilot project. And we're proposing this one at Commercial Street, but perhaps one will come along before that, again, on another property, if the property owner is willing. Maybe you could consider doing this on a volunteer basis on another property, so you're willing to do it as a pilot, because again, if we do this at Commercial Street, the town arguably would be paying the construction excavation costs. If we were to integrate it with another project and another property that's already going forward, maybe those excavation construction costs are already going to be paid for. So that might be another option. But I do think, Barbara, I would agree with you that it would probably make sense to do this as some sort of a pilot before it became a regulatory requirement.
I wonder, Scott, if we could have that discussion maybe in our wastewater sort of working group with DEP and the commission, and see if we could get some funding, because I think homeowners might not be so inclined to spend an extra X amount of dollars for a pilot project, but if we could get funding for it and a pilot project sort of laid out, maybe then it would be more palatable.
Yeah, no, two thoughts there, Hillary. Good point. First of all, we did have a conversation. I forget if you were on the call or not, with Millie Garcia and DP, and they were very interested in this pilot project. And she even suggested she might look for some funding. Whether or not that happens is another matter, but we at least got their attention. And secondly, if you did do it on on another private project, I wouldn't suggest that the private property owner would pay for this. I think the town would then could still contribute to that part of the project, but it might just make it a lot more cost effective, because as I'm trying to suggest, the construction excavation of putting in the wall itself is probably the primary expense. And if that's something the property owner is going to be doing anyways, the town's role would essentially be the reactive media and the monitoring part of it.
Yeah, I guess what I was thinking is maybe I misunderstood. I didn't know we were going to put a wall in
At Commercial Street?
Yeah, on Commercial Street.
We don't know we are.
Yeah.
And in fact, what we've been talking about is either the trench method or the injection well method,
Yeah.
both of which are quite expensive.
Yeah.
But when we saw this work on Long Island and Annika started doing the research, we said, you know what? This might work better. And again, if we can integrate it with other costs that are already being expended for the excavation, maybe this is more cost effective than the other two technologies. So we haven't made it, we meaning the wastewater committee, we have, and I'm not really on it, as you know, they haven't made a decision, but we've been talking about it. And then I think Ryan, correctly promoted this as something, at least just to inform the Conservation Commission about, since you guys are in the business of reviewing and permitting these other structures. So we just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Let me turn it
as an
on.
option.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I think a pilot project would be the way to go. We've got a couple of walls coming before us relatively in the short term, and they continue to come over time. So the
Yeah.
opportunity will be there.
As you said.
I have a question, Michael. So if it's a pilot program, wouldn't you have to have a lot of data before that you can compare with after it's already installed?
Well, as Annika mentioned, you do need to do a site analysis to basically identify the groundwater flow conditions. So that's something you'd want to do before you construct it. But the comparison of performance, Annika didn't take the time because I'm trying to not take too much time, but in her cross section, the idea is to put a number of wells, some so-called up gradient and some down gradient of the wall. So then you can compare inflowing groundwater with what's coming out the other side, if you will. And that's really how you get your performance rate. But John, to your point, yes, you would want to do some, regardless of where this would happen, the first step would be to do some so-called site characterization, which would be installing some wells and looking at groundwater flow characteristics, much like what Ryan was outlining there in terms of the thickness of the lens, the rate of flow, etc. So that would be something you'd want to do regardless of where this happens prior to the construction.
So if someone came with a proposal to do this on their own private land, we couldn't approve it really until they've already done all of that prior analysis, and it might delay it a considerable amount of time.
Well, maybe the thinking is, and again, I'm not promoting that we do this on private property, but I think the thought was if projects are coming along, and again, people are spending the money to begin with to construct these, maybe you could ask them if they'd be willing to consider doing this. The timing of putting in the site characterization, I don't think is a huge amount of time, and that would be something that I guess I would suggest the town would pay for, so it wouldn't be a burden on the private property owner. I mean, clearly it would be easier and cleaner to do it on the commercial lot that Annika identified, but it would be substantially a lot more costly, because in that case, the town would be responsible not only for the site characterization and the monitoring, but the actual excavation and construction, which we're suggesting is something that would really make the efficiency of the whole thing much higher if that construction was already going to be done for another purpose. But either way, I think it would be viable.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Hillary, what I'd like to do is postpone the draft WEP regulations till next time.
Okay, that's fine.
Are there any jurisdictional opinions that we need to address?
No.
Okay. And then meeting minutes, very briefly. I believe we have minutes from the last meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and John, what is the date of those?
Oh, the date. 16th, is that right? December.
16th, 17th.
No, 18th of December.
Okay, and could I have a motion to approve those meetings as minutes? December 16th?
16th.
Is it?
As
Yeah.
edited.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I'm in the wrong year.
Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right, I need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
yes.
Leon Shreve,
Yes.
Barbara Brennisell,
Yes.
Ben Fairbank,
Yes.
John Kumpler. I'm sorry, you're muted.
He may have stepped away.
Yes.
Michael Fisher
Yes.
and Debbie Freeman, yes. Okay. Hillary, is there anything else that we need to address in the business meeting portion?
I have one question, Deb. Do we have to vote on the change in the small vessel storage regulations before we go ahead and develop this educational materials and things like that? Because if we don't vote on these, then we can't really promote them. So you want to do that next time?
Sure, we
Okay.
can vote on that particular portion of the regulations
Right,
only.
right.
Okay.
Next meeting.
Next
Yeah,
meeting.
the only other thing I wanted to bring up, Debbie, was that I had reached out to Amy about finding a time when we could talk with her, and I didn't hear back from her. So I don't know if the commissioners could look at their schedules and get me a few dates and times over the next week where y'all might be available for a short period of time, just so we could have a meeting with Amy Questle quickly.
Or if you want to do a doodle poll.
Sure, I could do that as well.
Okay. Then we'll open the public hearing portion of the Town of Wellfleet Conservation Commission meeting of January 6, 2020. This is open pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, the Wetlands Protection Act, the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaw and its regulation, and Governor Baker's orders concerning remote meetings and open meeting law. The first hearing is Smith, 82nd Avenue, map 40, parcel 26, a request for a 3-year extension. Is anyone here for that?
Yes, Nate Jones, Coastal Engineering. If you're familiar with this project, it's a rock revetment for 82nd Avenue, the Smiths. It's currently under construction, so we are applying for an extension to the order. It expires in March. We don't know if construction will be completed by then, so we just want to extend it before it expires. I can answer any questions.
Why did you request 3 years?
Well, I like to keep it open for longer periods of time in case there are any issues that happen with structures like this. You know, first couple storms, usually there's some settlement. So if any large rocks became unstable or something, we could at least keep the order open if they needed to go back out there and just do some resetting rather than, you know, have it closed and then, you know, we can't really go out there and do any more work.
Okay. Hillary, do you have a problem with the 3 years? Okay. John Kumpler?
Yeah, I have a problem with the 3 years. I thought as a general policy, we're discouraging long extended extensions of permits. So I would be much more comfortable with 1 year or 1.5 years rather than 3 years.
Anyone else?
This is Michael. The approval was February 2018. So did they have 3 years before, in which it wouldn't be till February 21 already? If they had 2 years, then they're 9 months behind, 11 months behind.
Well, they would have had a permit. It was originally good for 3 years. It took time after we approve it. It then went on to Chapter 91 and the Army Corps for a permit. So it's not as though they've been dilly-dallying. There's just a permitting process that they have to go through as well before they can start construction. So the permit would expire in February of 2021, and that's why Nate is here. So we can grant a 1-year extension and then look at it again in a year if that's what folks are more comfortable with.
I certainly would be more comfortable.
I agree with John Kumpler on that. Could we have a motion, please?
I move that we grant a 1-year extension.
Okay. And you understand that you can come back at that point if you have issues? Okay.
Yep.
Is there a second to John's motion?
Leon seconds.
All right, I need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Leon,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John Kumpler,
Yes.
Mike Fisher.
Recuse.
Okay, and Debbie, yes. So 1-year extension.
Form 7, sign Form 7.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. The next matter is Saracen, 15 Springline Road, Springline Drive, map 29, parcel 258, an RDA to construct a 10 by 12 shed. Is there anyone here for that?
Yes.
Would you state your name, please?
Yeah, Teresa Saracen.
Okay, here's the problem. I don't think we can go ahead and hear your matter tonight because when we went out there, there was no staking and we could not tell where the shed was going to be erected. We cannot come to a property and do a site visit and not know exactly where you intend to put your shed.
Okay, I didn't know that somebody was coming out. The last time we had somebody come out, they called to tell us. I thought during COVID that wasn't happening and that's why it was on the plan.
No,
So if
we
we
need
have,
it on the ground.
okay, so what do I need to do then?
You need to stake it and you need a continuance and come back.
So how do I go about doing continuance?
Hillary? I'm sorry,
I
we
can't
can't hear you.
The commission would just continue it to our next hearing, at which time you would have it staked out in the field and they would come out and have a look at it the Wednesday of the hearing at 10 in the morning.
Okay, so I guess I'm misunderstanding. Like, so if I were to go out and stake that, like it was going, let's say it's staked tomorrow. Do I need to let somebody know that, or how do we do this?
Just have it staked by the next hearing date when we come out that Wednesday.
So, which is what, 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks from now?
Yeah.
Okay, and then then I wouldn't have a hearing with you guys for the 2 weeks from that date?
No, you could have a hearing that day.
The same day. Okay, so gotcha. I get you. Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something along the way. Okay, so we'll get that done for tomorrow. Get that all staked out so it'll be done so that when you go to good the following week, we'll be good to go.
Okay, and Barbara and John Kumbler have questions. So Barbara, go
I
ahead.
just want to remind the homeowner to read our regulations as to how close a structure can be to a wetland.
Right,
In
okay.
terms of citing this shed, make sure that you're in compliance. Otherwise, you're
Okay.
going to delay the process even further.
Okay.
Okay, John Kumbler, did you?
Yes, it's following up on Barbara's point. The site plan you gave us, I don't see the 50 feet from the wetland. We need those figures on the site plan. So basically, you can't put a structure within 50 feet of a wetland. So
Okay.
make sure that the shed is outside the 50-foot buffer zone.
Okay, I guess it's because I'm a novice to this. Like, how do I see on that plan where that what's considered wetland, what's a coastal floodplain? Are those different things?
Hillary, is there a particular document you could show her that indicates where the
I mean, we could pull up the plan that Chris Bates shared with us.
That plan was for the other house on the
Yeah.
property.
Yep,
And,
but
it looks like that particular shed may be within our jurisdiction as well. Even though someone approved it, we did not approve that shed.
Yes, you did. I came to a meeting for that.
No, I think, do you know when it was approved? How many years ago?
Last year? I don't have a date in front of me. But
Yes,
it
I have the
definitely-
information. It was approved on December 18th, 2019, with a -3 proposed by John Kumbler and seconded by John Portnoy.
Okay.
Right.
So in any case, looking at the application before you, I imagine you're going to use the same site plan.
Right.
And this is 50 feet from the top of the coastal bank, and that's 100 feet. So ideally, the shed would be sited outside of the 50
Right.
in this area up in here.
Right, okay, let me just see where you're at. I'm just looking at this from, okay.
So this is the
So,
50
well, hang on, let me just make sure I'm seeing this correctly. Because the deck area, that's the back of the marsh area, right? So we see deck where your cursor's at?
Yeah.
So what we're looking is if you moved it up if you were facing the house on the right side, I don't know, the shed isn't marked in there because I had it on the plans. But is it 50 feet from the coastal flood bank? That's what I'm not quite sure what's.
See this green line here? This
Yes.
is 50 feet from the top of the coastal bank. That's your more restrictive line. That's the line we're going to look at.
Okay. So
You
you're,
need to make it just to the right of that line. Move your shed there.
up to the front,
Right, correct.
because that's up to the front. I just want to make sure I'm not going to have a problem with building because it has to be so far off the front of the street, even though that, because we're considered spring line, right? Even though the main house is facing Pilgrim Spring, because the original structure was facing spring line, because I talked to the fire department and building about that, and they said, then it's definitely going to be that. But then the question is it to the front of the house? You know what I mean? The front of the street.
Yeah, I don't know what the setback is from spring.
Yeah,
line.
okay. Okay, so well, then maybe the positioning needs to be different, because I thought the coastal, okay. So the flood bank is different than, so this is different.
The flood zone is different, yes.
Okay, but, and that's what I didn't know. I didn't understand that. I thought we were going from the coastal flood bank, because we talked about that when we were doing the stairs. So that's where I'm kind of discombobulated a little bit. Okay, so we'll just have to do some refiguring. I'm glad that we talked about that, because it wouldn't have been staked properly.
Okay.
Okay.
So Hillary, we don't need a motion to continue this, do we?
Yes, you do.
Okay, we do. Can I have a motion to continue this to January 20th?
I move that we continue this.
And a second?
Second, Barbara.
All right, I need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Leon,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John Kumbler,
Yes.
Michael,
Recuse.
Debbie, yes. Okay, so we'll see you on the 20th, and please get your plan in as quickly as possible.
You bet.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next one is Holmes, 155 Samoset Road, map 28, parcel 103. It's an RDA to drill a replacement well. Is anyone here for Holmes?
Yes, Ron Peterson from Atlantic Well Drilling.
Okay, do you want to tell us about the project?
Essentially, we're going to drill a replacement well right next to the existing well, which is towards the right rear portion of the property on the coastal dune area. We plan to do this with portable drilling equipment to minimize the disruption. That's all I got.
Okay, and what will you do to mitigate the damage to the area?
What would you like us to do?
John Portnoy, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, yeah, it actually relates to your question, Debbie. When you say portable equipment, could you tell us more specifically what you'd use?
I think you're probably familiar with Neil Gadway's equipment. We basically hand carry it in. So if you're familiar with that, that's what we're going to do.
The tripod thing.
Correct.
Okay, so I'd suggest, sorry, I suggest that there would be almost no impact.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions?
Say again.
I was just asking the commissioners if they had questions.
If there are no questions, I'll move that we approve the RDA for Holmes.
Second, Michael.
All right, I need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Leon,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John Kumbler,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and Debbie, yes. You're all set.
Form 2, everybody. Sign Form 2.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay, the next one is Spindler, 120 Sandpiper Hill Road, map 22, parcel 9, an RDA to replace a wooden stairway. Is anyone here for that?
Jean May is here to represent the property owner.
Okay, do you want to tell us what's going on with the project, please?
As you can see, there's, I think there's about approximately 40 stairs down to the bank there, and several of them are getting quite spongy and need some replacement. And it'll be all manual labor, no equipment no heavy equipment or anything.
All the work will be done by hand.
Yes, yes.
Barbara?
Yes, well, we were out there today. We noticed that there seemed to be some stone patio work that was done. And in looking at my site plan for the property, it looks like all of that was within the 100-foot of the coastal bank, and that was not permitted work.
Do you know the work that was done there?
No, I'm not familiar with that. I was only asked to help with the stairway.
Okay, well, we're going to need the homeowner to come in and talk to us about the work that was done on the location. Because when you come before us, the entire property is opened up for examination. When can the property owner be here to discuss it?
I don't know. I'll have to get in touch with them and get back to you.
Okay, so we'll need to continue this matter. Should it be continued indefinitely?
Yes, please. I'm not quite sure what that means, but yes.
That means we don't have a date certain.
Yes.
Okay, the other thing you should be aware of is that when there's a staircase replaced, we require that identification be placed on it so that if any part of it washes away, there's a clear way of identifying whose stairs it is.
Okay.
And in some cases, we even suggest the lower portion be aluminum and be removed in the winter. So there are other things about the stairway, but we also wanted to address the other work that was done on the property.
Okay.
So I need a motion to continue Spindler.
So moved, Michael.
Second.
Okay, I need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Leon,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John Kumbler,
Yes.
Michael Fisher,
Yes.
and Debbie, yes. So that's continued indefinitely.
Thank you.
The next matter is Miller, 21st Avenue, map 30, parcel 122.
Excuse me, Debbie.
Yes, John.
Do we sign a form for that?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Good.
I'm sorry, this is an RDA for Vista pruning. And is there someone present for this?
Yes, Lance Miller, the owner.
Okay, here's the problem. We went out there today and none of the trees are marked. We need to know exactly which trees you want to take down, and normally they would be tagged with tape so that we could see exactly what you're talking about. There's nothing out there.
Tagged or pruned, whatever. We need to know what's going to happen exactly.
Okay, how am I supposed to know that you wanted that?
It's in our regulations. It requires that they are identified.
I didn't see it, but I read it carefully, and I talked to the commission, someone at the commission, and I wasn't told anything about it. I'm sorry, else I would have done it. If I could make a request, several people came into our house, climbed up onto the deck, and went to the front of the house without notifying my wife, who was here alone.
We did not come up on the deck. The people who came today only walked through the yard, so we were not on the deck.
Is it actually, I came up on the deck, but I knocked on all 3 doors and your wife answered.
Yes, but there were 3 other people that came, and she said that they were, maybe I'll check with her.
We
But
didn't go on the deck.
okay, I would consider that not appropriate
Okay,
to do
let me
that without
explain.
knocking.
Okay, Mr. Miller, let me explain. The commission agent went up and knocked on the door to speak to her and to tell her we were there and we were the commission. When you make an application to the commission as part of the commission process, you allow the commission access to your property to do a site visit. And we can't do that unless we come and actually stand on the property. We did not stand at your house. We did not stand on your deck. The only person who went up there was the agent to tell your wife that we're here. That's it.
I'm only reporting what my wife, I'll go back and check with her, but you can understand my concern, I hope. as a homeowner, leaving his wife alone, and people come on the property without identifying themselves. We did not know that there was going to be a visit. We weren't told that.
Okay.
So it was unexpected.
There's a site visit for every property that we can see so that we can see the land, because our jurisdiction involves the land and we can't tell what you're doing from.
I understand now, but I wasn't told. I would think that it would be good to have, here are some things you ought to know, homeowner, very clearly done. Just a suggestion, so we can move on.
Did you receive the local filing procedures? So any application needs to follow the local filing procedures. And it's clearly stated on the local filing procedure sheet that the project needs to be marked and that a site visit is conducted.
Okay, I'll check that.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Sorry for the inconvenience.
So what we need you to do is we need you to mark every tree that's involved so that we can come back and see what you're talking about.
Okay, let me ask this. You said first trees are going to be removed. There's no trees going to be removed.
No, I was just saying, for example, trees that are going to be removed, trees that are going to be pruned, trees that are going to be topped. Whatever trees are impacted by your view corridor, we need to know which trees those are.
And how do you prefer they be marked?
Normally what people do is just put a piece of tape around the tree so that we can see exactly which tree it is.
Okay.
And it would also be good if your arborists were there representing you at the next meeting when it comes up.
I'm sorry, I was searching for who was speaking. I missed what you said. Can you repeat?
Yes, this is Michael. I spoke to you on your porch after I knocked on the door and your wife answered. And I suggested then that if you have your arborist representing you, she or he can answer questions about how the limbs are going to be removed, what kind of equipment is going to be used, and so you don't have to have this postponed once again.
I tried to get Colson's to come and I couldn't get anybody.
Well, now you'll have 2 weeks at least.
Yes, thank you.
Do you want to come back in 2 weeks? Is that what you would like to do?
I would like to come back in 2 weeks.
Okay, so we need a continuance on Miller until January 20th.
So moved, Michael?
Is there a second?
Barbara?
Second.
All right, I need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Leon,
Yes.
John Kumbler,
Yes.
Ben Fairbank,
Yes.
Barbara Brandisel,
Yes.
Michael Fisher,
Yes.
Debbie Freeman, yes. You're all set.
Thank you.
Okay, the last matter for tonight, I believe, is sheets. 125 Marvin Way, map 21, parcel 26. A notice of intent, tree removal, repair walkways, expand deck, construct small platform, removal of trees and pruning for view corridor.
Hi, how are you?
I'm sorry, I can't see who's talking.
This is Michael Sheets. Can you see me now?
Yes.
It is hard to identify sometimes. My wife and I, Ellen, are both here. We're the homeowners, and also Jeremy Young, who is our landscape person, and Dave LaJoy from Falco, our engineer, are also on the phone. And I just have a few comments to sort of lead the presentation, if that's okay.
Please.
So this is our third time back, and we really appreciate very much the opportunity to be back here. We're hopeful that the third time's a charm, and what we have done is, we believe, taken into account everything we've heard from the commission on the last two times, and tried to address and make changes consistent with the comments from the commissioners, which if I can summarize, and they were comments from a bunch of commissioners. If I can summarize, they really included that the commission did not want to see any net new disturbed area, And the commission wanted us and the project to be sensitive to the issue of permeability, coverage and permeability. And that's what we have tried to do. We've made 3 changes to the plan. And if it's okay, I'd like to ask my wife, Ellen, if she could put up on the screen, your one sort of blow up of the affected area. So I could just walk you through the 3 changes that we've made to the plan. And let's see if, here we go. Like I said, there are 3 changes that we're making. The first change you can see, I'll just direct you to the left side of the screen where it says 2. We had proposed that there would be approximate 100 square foot platform decking essentially in a well-used viewing area, well-trafficked and used viewing area. We've removed that from the project proposal. So we have eliminated our proposal to put the platform there. And we believe, well, that was directly responsive to some of the concerns of the commission, and we heard you. Last time we were here, we had considerable discussion around the deck. And we have, in fact, modified the plan for the deck. We've basically taken a few feet off of the existing deck, the width where the cursor is right now, and redistributed that, if you will, in the area where Ellen is indicating now, or part of it anyway, to make the deck more logical, and then filled in the, I'll call it the vacant space, you may recall, adjacent to the house, the sort of strange vacant space, which is disturbed area, but it wasn't covered by decking. And the net result is a deck which is not expanding, not an expanded footprint. And, we're happy that we were able to adjust our plan to accommodate those concerns. And then the last piece, which we really didn't talk about too much last time, but is probably the biggest change here, concerns the walkway. So there's an existing bluestone walkway, which goes from the front of the house, or to the front of the house, if you will, to the front door. It's got a little wing on the right side there where the cursor is, but then it continues all the way around the house, all the way to the steps leading down from the house in the back. And you may recall we had a conversation about a small raised bed. That is number 1 here. That bed is about 25 square feet. There's no plantings in it, but it's demarked by railroad ties right now. And we had a discussion last time around our desire to have some sort of, well, when we were here last time, we wanted to put bluestone patio there. And there was concern regarding the amount of space we were covering. There was concern about permeability. And we, as a result of those concerns, we've adjusted the plan. So 3 things I'd like to indicate about the adjustment. Number 1, we're proposing to replace the existing bluestone with new bluestone in the space indicated that Ellen has indicated, that is from the driveway, if you will, to the house, and ending right at our screened-in porch. That would be, if you will, almost 1-for-1, replacing the existing crumbling and frankly not safe bluestone with new bluestone. However, we're proposing to narrow the existing area, and those are indicated in the red on the screen. And so in other words, we'll take up existing bluestone and put plantings there to reduce the amount of covered space overall in that front area. And then in addition, rather than continuing to propose that bluestone continue all the way around, we're proposing to replace the existing bluestone with permeable flagstone. all the way around. And while the drawing you can see does include having flagstone covering that small raised bed that I indicated, we're more than proposing to offset that significantly more by narrowing the path essentially and creating more planted space, and that's indicated in the red areas, on either side of that yellow portion. So overall, what we're trying to accomplish is less disturbed area and more permeability, and still be able to, of course, enjoy, the outsides of our house. And we believe firmly that we have listened to you and worked with you, and we hope you'll feel the same.
Okay, let me open it up to the commissioners for their comments.
Debbie, I have some comments.
Yes, John.
Depending on when the tennis court was actually built, it could be in violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. And under the Wetlands Protection Act, the commission has up to 3 years after a property transfer to enforce a past violation. I bring this up because, sorry about my voice, but there's been substantial disturbance over this whole lot. 6,000 square feet of that is for a tennis court. I went back and looked at the tennis court from the low side, and in my mind, it's clearly within not only the buffer zone, but actually within the resource, the wetland resource. And that's because it occupies an area that was historically diked off from the salt marsh, but is still very low and occupied by wetland plants. So unless the applicants can show that this tennis court was built before the institution of the Wetlands Protection Act in August 1978, then it would be in violation if there's no permit on file, and apparently there isn't. And secondly, it's within the resource, and I'm not sure what to say about that. It's not within the buffer zone, it's actually within the wetland resource. The only reason it can survive at all as a tennis court is because it's protected by an artificial berm.
Yes, Mr. Portnoy, there was discussion we had last time. The tennis court's been there since the 1950s. And I think another one of your fellow commission members, I think it might have been Mr. Fisher, forgive me if I'm incorrect there, who confirmed that in fact is the case. That tennis court has been there for many, many decades, and many decades prior to the institution of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Debbie, may I share my screen, please?
Yes, please, John.
Shall I go ahead, Hillary? Right now, I'm still looking at.
I think Ellen has to stop her screen share so that you could start your screen share.
Okay.
There you go.
John, you want to start now?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring up my slides. Okay, I did some research of aerial photographs, and the quality is not always great. But here's a photograph from 1960. It definitely shows a tennis court, but it's the Camp Marvin tennis court, which is not on your property, Mr. Sheets. Your tennis courts are up here in this red circle labeled 2020. So 1960 shows one tennis court down on the Camp Marvin area. And then the next, between 1960 and 1984, aerial photos have really poor quality, and I can't really determine whether the tennis courts were there or not. But anyway, in 1984, you can see the old tennis court here that's been abandoned and it's starting to be grown in by vegetation. And in what has become your property, there were actually 2 tennis courts built sometime between 1960 and 1984. It would be crucial to know whether they were built after the Wetlands Protection Act was put in place in August 1978, but I can't determine that from these photographs, from the 1970s photographs. Here's a 1991 photo that shows the old tennis court, now abandoned and overgrown. And the 2 tennis courts, the one that's that you're using is this one. I hope you can see my cursor. Now, okay, this is a current photo from Google Earth showing the existing condition with your tennis court. And just the assessor's atlas showing where these two tennis courts occurred on different properties. But going on the ground, the problem on the ground that I see is that the elevation in this tidal marsh on the, I guess, south side of this berm is not all that different from the elevation, the ground surface elevation in this area above this berm. And that would be expected because this area on the right is labeled dike wetland was actually part of the salt marsh before in the early 1800s, this berm was built. Still very low and is in vegetation. So I'm contending that this is actually not more than in the buffer, it's in the resource. I have a few other photos that show the area down there, and this is the actual salt marshes here on the left, and then the berm, and then the area occupied by the tennis court, this low area on the right. Just some other views. That's basically the situation.
Hillary, do you have any knowledge as to when this present tennis court was put in and whether it was permitted?
I do not. We have not found anything in our files indicating when the tennis court was installed. We did reach out to Nancy Vale, the assessor, because she does assess tennis courts, and she did not know there was a tennis court on the property, so she was going out to have a look. So no, we have no information.
Thank you very much for that, Hillary, by the way.
I should say that my knowledge of exactly where the tennis court is not precise, but there was a tennis court there.
Are there people hold on one second. Are there people in the neighborhood presently who could give us some guidance on this, at least as to where the tennis court was at what time?
My wife's family has been here all the way through. They ran Camp Marvin, and the only member that I speak to these days has no knowledge exactly of where it was.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher, my information, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my information is that Camp Marvin, I believe, ceased operation at some point, I thought, in the early to mid 70s, but I could be corrected.
No, I believe that's correct.
So the tennis courts were Camp Marvin tennis courts, and they were obviously built before the camp ceased operation, which respectfully, Mr. Portnoy, I believe was almost certainly prior to 1978, and you know, I understand you have accurately, I believe, you know, your pictures show the current situation, and I certainly we both wish that weren't the case, but that be that as it may, and as I said the beginning of the last time, you know, we bought it as is. We enjoy the tennis court, and we intend to continue to use that tennis court, and we're hopeful that in being responsive to the commission's comments, as we've tried to be the last several meetings, that you know, that that open questions regarding the tennis court are not really, going to prevent us, if you will, from being able to move forward with our project as proposed.
John?
And Mr. Sheets, do you know that the tennis court that you use was a Camp Marvin tennis court? Because there is an old abandoned tennis court on the adjacent property that was Camp Marvin.
That's a fair question. I think what you indicated as a tennis court is actually a basketball court. And if you look in the trees there are old. It looks kind of post-apocalyptic because as you said, it reverted back. And there are backboards. They're hoops rather in the exact area that you showed. The Durkees bought the property in the early 90s from the owners of as far as they told us, the owners of the old tennis court, I beg your pardon, the camp. And again, I would ask Mr. Fisher readily to correct me if I get a misstatement of history, but I think it was continuous ownership. In other words, the camp was split up at a time in which the Durkees bought, I think, 6 of the acres of the land and built the house. And they didn't build the tennis court. Tennis courts are pre-existing.
John?
Debbie, I have a question for Hillary. Whether is there special significance relative to the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town Environmental Bylaw, or the fact that the tennis court is within the wetland resource?
So, no, not exactly. The enforcement process would be a separate process from the notice of intent application. So if we can't gain sufficient proof that the tennis court predates the Wetlands Protection Act or was repaired in some way after the Wetlands Protection Act went into effect, and we have that 3 years from transfer of ownership, it's sort of a separate issue that we can go after at the same time.
Okay. Well, I guess all I've got left is, I don't know if it's appropriate, but all I have left to say is in the way of moral persuasion. The salt marshes are dying in Wellfleet Harbor because they're being flooded by rising sea level. And if they don't have a place to migrate uphill, we will lose our salt marshes. And we have, in this case, we have a fairly simple solution to allow salt marshes to migrate by removing a tennis court and allowing the tides to flow over the berm, which they will within the next 10 to 30 years, given projections of sea level rise. I suppose that's going to happen anyway, but it would be the best thing for that marsh and the public values that go along with it to remove the court and restore the marsh.
Thank you.
Hillary,
Debbie?
what about, I'm sorry, Michael, let me just ask my question and then I'll get to you. What about the fact that we're way over the disturbance limit in terms of square feet?
So that's the one thing you can hold on to, is the square footage of disturbance.
And the property was subdivided when?
I do not.
Is it the 3,000 or the 5,000?
Can you tell me when the property was subdivided?
Mr. Sheets?
Oh, is that me? I'm sorry. I actually can't. We bought it in February of 18. They put it up for sale in 17, I believe. So some point prior to that, 15, 16, I'm really not sure.
Okay, so if it's that late, then we're far beyond the 2003 cutoff for the 3,000 square feet. So
And all disturbance must be cited outside of the buffer zone.
Yeah. So we're really in a quandary.
Well, I hear you about the quandary. I really do. this point came up, I think, actually in the very first meeting, and Mr. LaJoy indicated that we had submitted a waiver request. And so, obviously we're not taking the house down, right? We're trying to work within our existing disturbance, create no new additional disturbance, and the revised plan we've submitted to you actually takes, if you will, disturbance away. In other words, we have mitigated further. So I think it's reasonable to ask landowners to be, especially ones that are over the limit, to be sensitive to that. But we are dealing with pre-existing structures, circumstances, and so we, in working with you and working with us, I think we've tried to strike a balance that appeals to that concern.
We understand that essentially you moved into a situation that was not your creation. We got that. The problem is that it exists at all.
Well, I guess one, I hear what you're saying, but I guess I would point out two things. We're not looking for an award for coming before you and asking for permission. I'm not doing that. But I will point out that we certainly are not about self-help, number one. And number two, yes, they exist, but if we believe we're improving the current situation, and so that should be, we're hopeful that the commission will view that as a net plus. In other words, we could just leave it alone and do nothing. It wouldn't satisfy us, and I don't think it would satisfy you either. Well, so that's why we tried to adjust it to remove bluestone, put in permeable flagstone, narrow the walkways, and improve the existing situation, which, to your point, both we as landowners and you as the commission, find as the current state of affairs.
Right. Now, Hillary, you said we could come back with an enforcement action.
Yes, if the enforcement action would be related to a repair or renovation of the tennis court, which we would have to make that case.
Nothing's happened to the tennis court.
Take it steady, buddy.
I guess I have a question. On the plan that you had shown, I think Ellen had shown it, you were decreasing the disturbance on the site from what to what?
So Dave LaJoy, did you calculate the net? I don't know what the word is to say. Net, reduced disturbance.
Decrease in disturbance.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Under the project list number 4, there's some numbers there that show that we're having the same area of change. I believe I had some of that as well in a note, but oh yeah, up at the top, number 1.
Are you looking at the plan or the
project list, number 1.
Okay.
560 square feet.
Dave, you did a calculation along the lines that Hillary was asking for.
I believe it's on the plan. Shows the reductions. Number 1. We're going from 613 feet down to 560. 53 square foot reduction. We're eliminating part of the deck and modifying the existing deck of the same square footage. We're proposing 1,200 square feet of improvement on the trees. We're showing 1,900 square feet total restoration or mitigation with the trees, the 360-foot area to the north side of the building where there's a number 6 and a number 13. And then right next to the bank, 409 square feet. The essence is we're reducing quite a bit from what exists now. And we're replacing everything that already exists as far as work on the ground.
So Debbie?
Yes, Michael.
Yeah, so it's a very complicated site, and also it's very fragile terrain. Leaving aside the tennis court, which I think we're going to have to deal with separately, I think that this current plan does take into consideration what we had recommended, and it does have at least some reduction in square footage, so that I believe that the owners, the applicants, have taken into consideration what we suggested last time and have come up with as creative a solution as possible.
This is Barbara. I agree with Michael. I mean, it's tough to reduce because you're not going to take part of the house down or remove the deck. I think the homeowner was responsive to our concerns. I'm thinking that the mitigation planting should help with some of the issues, and especially the drainage, and replacing the bluestone with flagstone. I would just like that new little flagstone patio area to be removed and just leave the walkway to the deck. That would be one other way that you could decrease the project a little bit.
Anyone else with comments?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Ben, was that you?
Oh, yeah. Just following up on the mitigation plantings, there's still no quantities of plants, and we need to know that you're going to satisfy the 3-to-1 ratio of disturbed plants to quantities. But that can just be added.
It's on the plan, I think.
Oh, is it?
It is on the plan.
It's under plantings.
No, there's still.
You
It's
turn it of number of.
But it says square footage, not quantities of plants.
Okay, all right.
So like it's just a small detail, but I think we should do that.
And we understand that the 1-to-1 trees or 3-to-1 tree bush, and that's exactly what's going to happen. I don't know if Jeremy Young needs to comment on that, but that is our plan. But thank you for mentioning that.
I'm sure that you could put together a planting plan and submit that to Hillary.
Yes, Deborah, I can submit a planting plan. The issue why we haven't done so is because there's been so many changes. We did dictate on the plan what size containers for ground cover and shrubbery, what size for trees, the spacing. I do want to point out to this to the commission that the sheets are mitigating an area of 409 square feet to mitigate an area that's currently eroding that they don't even need to deal with. That's on the plan to plant bearberry. So they are, trying to improve the site overall. Getting away from bluestone in 50% of the areas and getting into permeable material using flagstone with drainage runoff into planting beds.
We will submit the planting plan, Hillary. Thank you. I assume that's something we can do, as sort of a part of this hopefully post approval. But yeah, well, of course we'll do that.
All right, is there anyone else? John, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
No, that's all right. I really wanted to reinforce what Barbara said. It would be nice if they could reduce a little of that area with the walkway, but otherwise I think they accommodated all our, with the house, not addressing the tennis court, all our concerns in a creative way. And I'd like to let them move forward on it.
Anyone else? All right, could I have a motion, please?
Michael, I move that we approve the NOI for sheets 125 Marvin Way, map 21, parcel 26, with the submission of a planting plan before it's fully approved.
And I'd offer an amendment that no repairs may be made to any areas that are currently disturbed, covered by the tennis court.
Could you say that again, please?
I said no repairs may be made to any area currently disturbed and covered by the tennis court.
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
I don't want any more disturbance in that area, Dave. I don't want any repairs of the tennis court. If the tennis court
Oh,
starts
yeah.
to fall
Oh,
apart,
okay.
let it go.
Thank you. Yep, thank you.
John?
Debbie, does that address the berm, the portion of the berm that's on this property?
Yeah, no repairs to the berm either.
So, first of all, I appreciate the direction we're going in, but I have to push back a little bit on the tennis court piece for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it's pretty clear if we wanted to, recreate the berm or do something, that would be a whole different ball of wax, and we don't have any plans to, resurface or alter the tennis court. Having said that, the berm is a walkway that's used by people all day long to walk along the path. I mean, all day long. I'm not talking about the sheets. Abutting neighbors have approached me about concerns that they have on flooding at the end of Richmond Lane, because the water that comes in, I haven't done anything, I'm not proposing anything, but the water that comes in there flows, all the way across the old soccer field and the like. And my point is simply this, that I can commit to, if we wanted to do something with the tennis court within your jurisdiction, obviously we would come to you, but it does affect other abutting landowners. And I think, I guess I just question the mixing of the apples and oranges by the amendment, which is not a small thing. I wouldn't mind an amendment which says that if the Sheetses that the Sheetses, acknowledge that the tennis court is in a low-lying area covered by, Conservation Commission jurisdiction, and if they want to make alterations, they need to come to us. But I think sort of a blanket, don't touch it, which may raise questions later on. I don't know. It feels like that goes too far.
Any comments? Leon?
Well, first of all, we don't have to say that if you do something in the tennis court, you need to contact us. That's a given. And it's a terrible thing that tennis court is there. It's just the antithesis of what we're trying to do here in Wellfleet. That's all.
We are, so, trust me, I get it. And, you know, I think what Mr. Portnoy said is absolutely inevitable, that, you know, whether we wanted to do something or not, you know, it's going to go eventually. We've tried to just keep the focus on the project we're doing. And, you know, frankly, Mr. Portnoy, I kind of agree with you. You know, what happens is going to happen. And maybe there's a creative way somewhere down the road where, you know, we could do something with it to speed that up, but we're just not prepared to do that right at the moment.
John Kumbler.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very sympathetic to what people are saying, but I think the problem we have is that if we don't spell it out now, let's say the Sheets sell the property to someone else, and then they say, oh, but there's no, you know, there was a tennis court here, and I have the right to repair my tennis court because there was a tennis court here. This is our chance as a conservation commission to put our interests, which are really the interests of the wetland, forefront, and by putting it in our agreement to alter your property, it protects the future, and it limits the ability of some future owner who doesn't have the same long-term vision about the interest of Wellfleet's conservation, because we've had this in the past. It prevents those future owners from using the existence of that tennis court now, and the fact we never put into writing our objection to it as a legal basis for them to then build up the berm and protect the tennis court. So I think I understand your concern, but I think to protect the future, we have to include John's amendment. And I just think that's unfortunate, but I think that's what we have to do because we faced this in the past. That's all I have to say.
Leon?
As far as being apples and oranges, anytime that we go visit a site, the whole site is open to our examination.
All right, is there a second to the motion as amended?
I second.
We need a voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Barbara Brenessel,
Yes.
Ben Fairbank,
Yes.
John Kumbler,
Yes.
Michael Fisher,
Yes.
Debbie Freeman, yes. So with that amendment, you're all set. Leon?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Form 5.
Thank you. Good night.
Do you need an agent for a supervisor for that?
Yes, I think you did. Yes. Sounds like you're volunteering, Michael.
Yeah.
Well, I pass it almost every day.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Commission.
Okay, is there anything
Thank you
else?
for
that we
being
need
so
to address?
supportive.
All right, the last thing I'd like to address is before June of this year, we need to have elections for a new chairman, and I would really appreciate it if one of you would consider taking over the chairmanship. So there we are. Anything else?
Bye, everybody.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
Hold on one moment too. Mr. Cowles has been on the line for most of the evening. I don't know if he wants to address the commission or if he's just listening. Mr. Cowles?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I appreciate that these meetings are done through Zoom. We have a shed permit coming up on our property, which will be coming before the commission soon. So I wanted to just learn a little bit about how you do things, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done. On the Smith condition, when you come and visit my property, which I assume will be probably in 2 to 4 weeks, one thing I'm concerned about the wall that's on Tennant Island, I just want to, right now, if you go down 3rd Street in Wellfleet, right now that that road kind of goes over the dune and down into the beach. So I would hope that over the next year, while you've extended the permit for the year and then, you know, beyond, I just hope that they don't keep it in the condition that it is. Because we have a revetment and every year we put sand down on the revetment for our requirements. And I just don't want that to stay that, you know, like it is now, because right now people could almost drive off of that, you know? So,
Hillary, are you familiar with what he's talking about?
I heard from his neighbor about it as well.
oh,
And I
Mr.
told the
Brin,
neighbor next time I was on the island or Doug was, we would have a look at it.
and you might be there soon because we're yeah, we're looking at putting a shed on our property.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. That's all I had to say. I just wanted to learn a little bit and I learned a lot. I'm
Great.
going to have everything staked out, labeled and hopefully ready for you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
I just want to know what form we were supposed to sign for that last.
5.
Hold on.
So we have a 7, a 2, and a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, voice vote. John Portnoy,
Yes.
Leon,
Yeah.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
John Kumbler,
Yes.
Mike Fisher,
Yes.
Debbie, yes. Goodbye, you guys.
Bye. Thank you, Debbie.
Go watch the news.
Oh.
Bye.